Hey everybody, welcome to today's class. And in this class I'm going to talk about the body proportions and drawing the body parts. So this is the final lesson about the anatomy. You can see the previous videos for more anatomy tips. And so everyone who's now Patreon will get the new ebook next month about drawing the lower body and the total body proportions. So see the pinned post for more information about it. So let's just start with this lesson. And here you can see one of the models I made. And let me just start drawing this character. So I already showed a bit of this in a previous video. So this is a summary with some illustrations I didn't use in the current lessons. So I'm taking the brush, and you can also do this in your sketchbook or in your sketchbook, on paper, or on your computer. That doesn't really matter. The main thing is that you learn these steps. So here, this is more or less the spine, or it's also a bit of an action line. So, and then on top of that, and now you can see that I'm in the last video I showed all these proportions, and now I'm showing it a bit more loose. So, and you can also practice that and try to be sketchy with that. A lot of times I see people trying to be really having all these perfect lines. And I would advise you to maybe try to even be more messier than I am. So here I have the feeling this head is too much in the front, so I took it a bit back. And I do this now freehand because I practiced drawing those proportions a lot on with measurements, and I don't like to draw too much with measurements. I do that for practice. And again, see the last videos for that. But this is how I normally would draw. Normally I won't figure out all the exact proportions. I do it on feeling, and I do that because then you get more the drawings get less stiff, they get more alive. So, and yeah, it's also easier to make some mistakes you need to tweak and stuff. So I think this is maybe this is a bit of frustrating lesson, but what I'm trying to say is that it's really good to practice all those different proportions, but when you're making your final drawings or when you're progressed a bit, you want to let that a bit loose and do it more sketchy like I'm doing now. And finding a middle ground in that. So I don't hope that's too frustrating. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments about that. And if you find this really hard, I would advise you to practice the lessons from the previous lessons, where I show all these proportions. And don't worry that your drawing gets stiff in the first weeks you're training this. That's really good, because when the drawings are stiff, that means that you're learning. So, and that can take a bit of time. So now I'm just playing around a bit, adding all these shapes. It's a bit like in this step. So first drawing all these big shapes, figuring out how I want to draw this character. So here, this shape. Remember the chain I drew? You can see that here, going inwards here. And also here. And if you have any lessons of questions about drawing or lessons you want to see or anything, drop them in the comments or ask it through Discord. I would prefer you ask it in the comments so everybody can see it, and yeah, say maybe make comments on each other saying that they also like it and etc. That way, then I know that people what people want to see. So what I also would advise for people to practice this is to, I see a lot of people are sending me final drawings, and that's great. But I would also make these kind of academical studies, so you can really practice anatomy. So here, and here, this leg, feet. So when I have this sketch, you can start drawing all the muscles on top of it. Here's the ear, jawline, here's a muscle, here's a muscle. And that also depends a bit on how muscular these characters are. So maybe this is a hero or Superman. He's wearing spandex or something. So you want to show all those muscles. So I'm drawing all these muscles in here, these abs on the side. Here you have these muscles here. So, and again, I also don't know all of them out of my head. So sometimes, and I don't do this now because of time, but then I look up on internet some reference material. So here, and here, here. So this leg, ankle, feet, toes. This ankle is a bit too low. So you can see I'm also making mistakes and then I'm correcting them. Or I miss them and later I will see from them and learn again. It's also progress. So here, adding these muscles. And just keep adding them. And when you have this, then you can start drawing the final character on it. It is basically how I would draw characters like this. Here. So now we have this. Let's continue to the next one. So here I'm showing the steps of the muscles. And last lesson, I showed how to draw this skeleton. For the sake of time, let's just take this character and make this one a bit bigger, like this here. And now we're going to add the muscles. I think I'm just going to use one color also for time. So here, starting with the neck. And also on the other side. Then we have this muscle here. This muscle here. I think I need to make it a bit more inside that head. So a bit less muscular. So here muscle, here. Here's this bone. Okay, like this. Here, then here we have these breast muscles, and they're a bit on this height. And again, I'm now drawing without measuring too much. At one point, you want to be a bit more loose with that. Do it on feeling, but you only can achieve that when you practice all those previous steps and all those corrections, that you know it by heart. But at one point, you want to get everything a bit more organical. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. But if you don't get it, go watch the previous videos and really learn all those muscles and all those steps, and it will make you more confident when you're drawing characters like this. And even then, I'm also not always sure about all the muscles I'm drawing. And again, I'm also using a lot of reference like this. That's why I started making this book. So I have some reference for myself that I can use. So here, now let's adding the lower ones. Here, these bones are often pointing out a bit outwards. So here, these calf muscles. Remember this angry face I also showed earlier. So like this. So here's an image of the names of all the bones and all the muscles. And it's good to maybe make a study drawing of them, write all the names down, practice them a little bit out of your head. But again, to be honest, I don't know all those bones and muscles out of my head. But when I see them, I do remember them. And I think that's important, that you have this grasp, understanding. So here you can see, maybe I can show drawing the side of the body. So here I would start with drawing here this spine, and then maybe here these leg bones. And there's no one route to learning to draw to everything. It's our only guides, and all the things I'm teaching. Sometimes I also let them loose and trying to be a bit more, trying something different, playing a bit around. But again, I think those rules and those lessons are really good for when you're starting out. So you can really get on that level where you can play around more sooner. So here, having these, and here you can see I'm trying to get this flow in these drawings. So here, these bones and the clavicle sticking out a little bit, and here we have these bones going like this and this here. You can really see this S curve clearly here. So let's erase this a little bit. Let's draw in the skull, and the neck, and the back. This here and this hole here. And the back of the body. Then here. Coming down here. Calf muscles. Here. And Here the feet. Like this. So now we have this step. And this depends. If you would draw just clothing on top of it, you don't have to draw all these muscles. You can just draw the pants on this here. And maybe adding some lines here. And that's it. But if we would draw him in swimming pants, then you want to see all those, and he's really muscular, then you want to see all those muscles. So then I would draw in his shoulder muscle. Oh, keep pressing that button for swapping the color of the brush. So now the leg muscles here, I think this one you would see, this one, I'm showing that here. So yeah, it depends the level of muscles. It depends on is he wearing tight clothing, or if he's just wearing a big sweater, then you won't see all those muscles, so you don't have to draw them all. For the female, here you can see you don't see a lot of those points, but there are some points like here or here or here. Here are some points that you clearly see some muscular and at other points not. So there are some mark points. So maybe look at your own body in the mirror and look if you can find some spots that are really clearly to see. And it depends really on the bodies. But oftentimes it are the spots where the bones are close to the body. So like the elbows or the lower legs, and etc. So maybe a fun exercise for you to do is what I did here is looking up a picture from internet, and then try to draw it in these steps. So I can show this character. I also showed this a bit in the last video. So here, starting with an action line. So look up a picture of a sporter or something on internet in your favorite search engine, and then maybe starting with the head, then the rib cage. So I would really love to see if maybe people could do this for next week and send me their versions. Then here's the pelvis. Zoom out a bit. Standing here. Then the leg is going here. And when we have this one, we can start adding basic shapes. So here, maybe a cylinder here. And later, on top of that, we can draw the muscles. We're figuring out all the spots in 3D with all those basic shapes. And then you can see that learning drawing cartoon can really help with making drawings like these as well. So continuing here, maybe this here. And just keep continuing with this. So here. And this part here, and in here. So like this here. And this part here. So sometimes I'm a bit quiet when I'm drawing, and It's because I then paying attention on the drawing part. Sometimes it's hard to do two things at the same time. So now we have this. Now you can start adding in all the muscles if it's necessary. So here the bicep, here this underarm, here's this bone part with the elbow, this heart. So this is a great practice. So look up a cool picture on the internet, maybe from Bruce Lee or maybe some other fighter, or maybe from turning or something, and do follow these kinds of steps. You will learn a lot from it. Maybe it's not great portfolio work. Again, I see that a lot of people are sending me portfolio work, but I would also love to see sketches like this, because then I really think, because you can make these quite fast and you learn so much from this, that's a quicker way to grow. And of course you need to make fun and make portfolio projects, but this is also a good one. So characters with a lot of body fat. Here, this skeleton, I even drew them quite big, but I think, yeah, I sort of made a mistake. I can here the skeleton of a fat and a normal person or skinny person are basically the same. So if this is this person, like this here, and then there's all this body fat on top of that. I'm showing that here. So oftentimes the body fat is on top of the muscles. So you get this extra space between that and the muscles. So the body fat does have a different anatomy than the muscles. You often don't see it's just one big blob. And maybe at some spots you see a bit of the bones, but not on a lot of parts. So here you can see also everything I learned you in previous lessons, but again more loosely and more stylized, not the perfect proportions I showed earlier, but this is how I actually draw my characters more really loosely, starting with simple action line, correcting stuff. It's always important to take some time, relax, try to make some good choices. So here, here, here. So drawing the bones and then draw these shapes on top of it. And here you can see that if you keep those shapes really simple and also practice drawing those shapes, it makes it way more easier, because you're combining all these shapes together. So here's the back. I think I also showed it in previous videos. So yeah, using basic shapes. And here again, a rough sketch, adding anatomy, final sketch, and then adding some shading. That's basically how I draw these characters. So for next week, it would be great that if you want to study these kind of drawings, go ahead, and then I maybe can give some feedback or some tips on it. And also let me know if you have some questions about that. So let me head over to the homework assignment. And let's start with Stefan, who made this awesome Spider-Man character. So what I would advise is maybe if you use this from figure drawing for photo for pose, try to exaggerate. So here this action line, maybe try to push it a bit more like this. So the action line is now this. You can see I'm pushing it a bit. So pushing this head more forward, making it maybe more angry, or try to ask yourself, what is the story you're telling? You're always trying to communicate something. So here, this character, strong character, is walking dangerously, or is he sneaking? Maybe he's sneaking. This really big character is sneaking somewhere on his toes. So always ask yourself, what is he doing, and how can I show that as clear as possible? And maybe adding this arm, maybe using some foreshortening here for this arm. So like, how would I do that? So here, maybe something like this here, but that you have some foreshortening going on here, and that you're trying to push the pose. And that's basically all I want to say. So try to push those action lines a bit more, and ask about what is the story you want to tell. And that can be one sentence. That can be really basic. But awesome work, Stefan. Keep it up. So let's look at David for this cool character. And I really like the drawing. And there are some things I would tweak on it. So here, maybe this really going straight forward, parallel. So what I would do is I would try to add some perspective here. So maybe adding this here and this here. So like this here. And then, so here this also goes around. So you want to make everything a little bit more 3D. So then we have this bone, and then maybe this bird, like this action line. So try to also get this, let it look at the bomb, and maybe exaggerate. Think about the story and what you're trying to tell. So maybe he's shit scared because he's screaming here. So then here. So try to push that bit. Also here, where are the wings coming from? So maybe adding some, making this a bit more like this here, and then showing that the wing come from this point. And here also using this to guide the eye, and also here maybe this wing from the behind. So maybe make it more like this here. So trying to get these arrows to make it more dynamic. So awesome work, David. Keep it up. So Sarah, so this is a cool drawing. Thanks. So let's see what can we do. Maybe it's interesting if you maybe rotate. Yeah, that's making this body maybe rotating this way. So think of the construction of the body, see those anatomy lessons. So this body is aiming this way, and then the head is this way. And I see the eyes are a bit anime, kind of. So maybe adding some anime fingers here, their hand, something like this here. I think that's cool if she's doing something with her hand. Can also be a different gesture. And let this arm go down for the symmetry, for the asymmetry. And here this, like that this head is going this direction. So also with this mouth, think about how this wraps around the body, and also how this jaw gets. So especially when you're drawing these anatomy, think about how this mouth is wrapped around the body. The same with the eyes. Sorry, but I think that's really nice. Did a great job here. Maybe if you have the skull, maybe you can give that hair a little bit more shape. Maybe it's a bit bigger. Also, with these things, think about how they wrap around the body. And for example, here we have these dots coming from here, here, and then there's one in the back. So what I would advise you is to practice drawing with construction. So try to see how these things are going in 3D. These cylinders, cubes, and you're building your characters with those kind of shapes. And it's also important to not make your drawings too stiff with those kind of shapes. But I think drawing the construction and, for example, how's the eyes on this ball wrapping around, and etc., the mouth and all those details. So maybe you can practice that a little bit. So let's go to Brett. So cool drawing. Let's make it a bit smaller. So really cute. So I'm wondering what is happening. Where is he watching? Is he watching at the dog? If he would see this from the top, if you hear this character, and it looks like the character is watching. So here's the camera. It looks as if the character is watching down, but to the camera. So down to the camera, to this spot. And at the same time, the dog, Paul, is here. Maybe the dog is a bit here. It feels like this here. So it doesn't feel like the character is watching at the dog. So I think you can simply do that by placing the eyes like that. So maybe it's funny if he putting his arm on the pen or something. And so think about, what is your story? What are you trying to tell? Also here with this, here, let me look at this tail. So if this is the leg, so maybe draw the tail a bit in front from the back of the leg. So I find that part a bit confusing. So maybe you can play around a bit with that. There's a bit more overlap on that. Maybe make the tail even a little bit bigger, or it doesn't even have to be. But that there's a bit more overlap, and overlap is this. So then you know, you clearly see this shape is in front of that, and you want to avoid this. You want to do this. So I also have it a bit here. So maybe it works better if you do something like this here. Maybe putting this gel here, so something like that. And watch out for too much symmetry. So maybe you can put one eyebrow lower and one higher. We can make this nose a little bit skewed. And maybe you can make this ear a bit more like this. And then this ear, you leave it as this, like this here. But then there's a little bit less symmetry. Try to to play around a bit with that. Maybe give him again a little bit of shoulder or something, so to overlap. So here. So also try to think a bit, for example, here this leg feels straight. So here this feels maybe a bit more like there's some foreshortening, that it is coming towards us, this here. So that's called foreshortening. So it can make help your drawing get more depth in it. So maybe it's also funny if you this character. I would also watch out for using too of these parallel lines, and it can be a style choice. I would advise to maybe taper a bit of those lines, even it's a little bit. So maybe I would even make his hand here. I think, let him look. Maybe giving a little bit of depth here. Also here. Maybe this is a curved line, and then maybe here is more of the complex, like this here. Maybe you want some negative space there. So maybe something like this. But I would play around a bit with giving it a bit more depth. And you do that with foreshortening and overlap. But great work also in this pen. Maybe you can use this pen also to give some depth in it. So Timo, it's a cool corgi plant, I think. So let's see, make this a little bit bigger. It's a bit lower, and let's draw on top of it. So the main thing I think is construction. And maybe perspective as well. I would maybe even choose for maybe perspective like this here, and that you have this that you're showing. This thing is on the ground. So like this here, and that we have the ball here. This thing is out of here. So we have this character here. So think about how this head is constructed. So if we see the side of this character, it would be something like this. So watch out for these parallel lines in his tongue as well. So maybe give the shape head a little bit of shape. So think about how this is constructed, how it's built. Maybe you can watch some of those animal tutorials I made. Maybe give him a bit of the eyebrows, and put this ear like this, and maybe this ear is hanging or something. It's also breaking the symmetry, and also here these leaves. I think it can be a little bit more up. So here this tail is coming from this. And so maybe I would make this tail coming from the side or something. So like this. And then, so I would, because like this, it feels so separated. So it doesn't feel connected. So try to find a way to make it more connected with that shape. And try to work on your construction for a character like this. How is this head constructed. On my Instagram are some tutorials about drawing animals. Maybe you can look those up. So Christy, cool drawing, but I would advise you to practice if you're focusing on anatomy. Go practice of my older videos and make studies like these. Draw these things rough and draw all the muscles, and watch some of the older anatomy videos I posted a couple of weeks ago and do those kinds of studies. Make sketches, etc. I think that would really can really help a lot. So some design choices I'm seeing here is that you're using there's this symmetry here. So what I would do is maybe make this hair a bit like this here, then let it here going like this here. So there's less symmetry, and I would look about how these breasts are. So here these breast is going from here. I think it can be a little bit more coming from these points. I think that would look a bit better because this feels a bit too wide. For the rest, I really like it, but try to think of how these shapes are wrapping around here, also here. So here, this also, I like this, but maybe you can use this a little bit here as well. So that's always hard things with pens like this. Maybe you can give her a short or something. So like this. I think that would really help with the, here then you have these lines that also suggest this depth there. This goes around. So always draw those shapes around. And here then we have this line here. And use these overlapping lines a little bit more. And also here, these corners. Here this feels a bit too soft. Maybe give it a bit more shape. Check out my older tutorials about those things. I would really study those kinds of drawings instead of, and then again, drawings as these are good, but maybe try to make them a bit more sketchy. Be more rough. I would see more rough drawings from you. And here, try to use S-curves versus straights, etc. Here, I think this can bulge a bit. And then here, but I also would, for these kind of pictures, I'm also using a reference a lot to help me with that. So here I would watch out with lines like these here. So maybe draw the feet a little bit more from the side here. Something like that, and this here. So, but again, great work and keep it up. And again, I would advise you to maybe make some more studies about anatomy. And of course, you can keep doing these kinds of drawings, but also try to study the lessons I gave earlier. So, for example, drawing torsos, that you practice that, and etc. So let's look at Viana. These are some cool drawings. I really like the action line in it. Oh, sorry, a bit of a dry throat. So watch out for these tangents. I would make them a bit separated. So, because if you have those tangents, that means when shapes are going like this, and then try to use overlap or make them really separate. For example, this could be okay, but I would make it a little bit more there. It makes just a little bit more clear. So here this feels really symmetry. So if I would make a drawing like this and show it, I would draw it more from perspective. So maybe you can play around with that he's pulling up something heavy. Because I have a bit of a hard time what he's doing here. So it would be better if it's maybe something like this. So, but can you see what I'm doing? So I'm trying to show it a bit more from perspective with this angle, with this 3/4 angle. Instead of a front view, I'm showing more view like this, a 3/4 view. Because then you're breaking the symmetry a little bit, especially with the hair. You can do that. So maybe something like this. So try to avoid symmetry, and you're doing this great with the other poses. Maybe you can push it even more, some of the poses. Try to push it. I really like this, only it feels, here this feels a separate shape, and this separate shape, this separate shape. Try to connect all these shapes a bit more. Try to think about how is this head constructed. For example, this head feels really simple, but this hand, here we have these bulbs here. So try to make everything really basic, or try to give everything a little bit more construction and shape. What I mean with connecting is, for example, if I'm drawing a head and a neck, you can also draw it like this with the neck, and then erase a little bit here. So then it feels more, you have this opening, it feels more connected, and this feels separated. This feels connected. Also here, maybe here make this a bit more round, this opening, and then here you're using this overlapping line. You can see here, this, here you're using lines like these. So you have these points to show overlap. But great acting and poses, these are great for portfolio work. It's a great model sheet. Great work, Fiona. Let's look at Anders. So great studies, man. I would recommend keep practicing this. Keep doing more of these. Maybe you can even try to push them a bit. Even if this is correct with the real life, in drawings you often want to push those angles a little bit more. So maybe something like this, and this here, and maybe setting this more straight up, or play around a bit with that. But we stretch this this leg, and but I think you're doing really great. And try to imagine how these shapes are in 3D. So I still have the feeling that these shapes can be a little bit better constructed. But I love that you're drawing really rough. So that's great. So maybe if you have drawings like this, then maybe you can start adding anatomy on top of it. So just keep going, Anders. Great work. Keep it up. Dana, so this is awesome. You added a lot of detail. One thing I would say is watch out with details. I don't know where my eye needs to be. So you need to guide the eye. So now there's overall, here's detail, here's detail, here's a lot of detail. So, and you want that people want to see this first. So watch out with all those details. Maybe if that's when you're going to make your final drawing, you can of course make this all a bit lighter or darker. Something like this here. And then that would work. But watch out a bit with that. Also think about composition. And maybe you can just finish this drawing if you really want, but oftentimes I would start with making thumbnails. So something like this here, and divide this in 9 parts, like this here. And oftentimes I want to have a main focus point here and here to make an interesting composition. So it's not always working. I think with this one it's really hard. But I like that you put this book in the foreground. And we can use this character here. Yeah, I think that could work. And that character here. So you already did that, so that's great. Maybe here this, if this is point importance and you're already doing that, you have the door there. Maybe there's someone opening this door or something. It also makes it interesting. I don't know, but I'm feeling that there's a bit of this still not really working, but what I'm feeling is that you see, I think this is this vanishing point. So it's really in the middle here, this. And that could work. But maybe it would be more interesting if it's a bit more like this here. And then you use this door here. And then maybe this door is open or something. Someone said, oh, what's happening here? Getting the arm in front. I can also imagine that maybe C is sleeping and that this character is freaking out or something. That's, well, why is my body in the floor or on the thing, and why can't I do anything or something? So I think that, for my feeling, that makes a bit more sense or something. Let's see, body or something. And that the wizard comes in and think, oh, what did you do? But now I'm telling an own story. But maybe that will tell more story or something. But what I also like with composition is that you have these focal points here and here. So you get this triangle here. So like this. And then I really like that you put this book in the front. And So maybe you can make here, maybe there's also something here, maybe another table or something. But great work, but watch out with all the details and ask yourself again, what is the story and how can you make it stronger? This door, I think, yeah, maybe is there, she locked herself up. I don't know why, maybe that's why I like to have a character walking in or something to make it more dramatic. And also that I think it's also stronger if her body is laying on the ground and she's freaking out here. Like, oh wow, what I'm doing floating in the air. I think that would make it a bit stronger. But watch out with all these details. You want to have a clear focus point. The point where you first look at if you're a viewer. Great work. Let's look at Tamas. And I really like all these different heads. So what I would advise you, if you make something for a client or for a school or anything, I would not show this much. You can draw this much because you are exploring, but I would pick the 5 biggest different characters. Maybe with these really big eyes and really with these small eyes. Maybe this expression, but here these two are too close together. So I would try to make, to show the ones with the biggest differences, and keep this for yourself. So make some choices and watch out that you're showing someone too much stuff that makes you look like you're not confident. What I often do is I make 30 drawings and I only show 5 to the client, and then really show the ones that are really having a big difference. And I'll also ask yourself, why would you choose this one? For example, if your why is different, then maybe if with a different why, this could work. But with a different question, this one would work better. So ask yourself, so if you would ask me from which one should I choose now, I couldn't say. That really depends on, do you want to go for a more commercial Disney look? Or do you want to go for a more indie gamer grown-up look? Then probably this would work. So think about, what is the purpose? What is your goal? Ask yourself and make those decisions based on that. And so always think about why, really try to think why you're making those decisions. So that is today's lesson. Thanks everyone for sending the homework, and leave any comments in the questions, and you can send some work again for next week. Hope to see you again next week. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.